Story 1. I will never understand the type of person who could leave their pet by the side of the road. I thought I was going to die, and I couldn't stand the thought of never coming home to my pets. How could you stand the thought of leaving your dog there and just knowing that he's waiting for you? Story 2. I really struggle with people who refuse to see things from others' perspectives. It's hard when someone's mind is so closed off to new ideas and different ways of thinking. Story 3. People who can lie effortlessly without showing any guilt. It's unsettling to think how easily they can manipulate and deceive others without a second thought. Story 4. I will never understand those people who love drama in their life. The sort that just thrive on and live for drama. Always some fight with their significant other, their friend groups gossiping, in trouble at work, etc. Every time you see them, it's something new. I know people like this and even have relatives like this, and it just seems so exhausting and horrible. Story 5. People who have kids and then try to control their entire lives should recognize that their children will grow up to be individuals with their own thoughts, opinions, and ideals. Story 6. People who throw trash on the ground in the streets or in parks, nature, or anywhere else, how can they do that so casually and without any guilty feelings? I lose it if I drop the tiniest piece of a plastic envelope. Story 7. People who worship celebrities or care about celebrity gossip. I can barely be asked to keep up with the lives of my own family, let alone some person I've never met. Story 8. People who only use speakerphone in public. You limit how well you can hear the other person, you limit how well they can hear you, and you bring everyone around you into your conversation. What's the positive? Am I missing something? Story 9. People who are angry all the time hurt themselves the most, and everybody else stops caring after a while. If you are always angry, just make a change. Nothing is worth living like that. Story 10. People who need to recite a fake reality out loud to replace the one they don't want to face. Like those people who immediately blame others when life doesn't go their way. You see these types everywhere in gaming, but I also found it common in workplaces. Story 11. People who would choose their Bronze Age religion over their own gay or transgender child. If your religion tells you to do that, then it's garbage and you are a bad person if you listen. Story 12. Incurious people. Are you broken? Humbled by childhood neglect? How can you go on so calmly, avidly disinterested? Is it a confident stillness? Is your soul tethered to some deeper acceptance of it all? I envy you people greatly sometimes. Story 13. Incurious people who are never interested in knowing anything more than they already do. Why learn anything new when I can just scroll YouTube shorts all day? Story 14. People who are in a rush to cut you off in traffic and then they go slow as can be. Okay, clearly you are not in a hurry, so what did you cut me off for? Story 15. People with no inner monologue. People who are extremely driven to the point of sacrificing relationships with loved ones and never stop to smell the roses. Story 16. People who enjoy being the bad guy, telling it like it is, or not caring what others think, just telling the truth. Often lack tact and end up feeling very lonely and victimized. Story 17. People who have the mentality of, I had to go through it so you should too, versus, I had to go through it and I don't want anyone else to have to suffer. I also don't understand how those same people then act like those currently suffering are complainers or overly sensitive individuals who want a safe space. I've tried repeatedly to explain to these people that the working poor right now are funding Social Security and Medicare, and they likely won't see any of it when their turn comes. These people are so broke and stretched so thin that they can't afford to save anything because they're barely making it. Then they get the bootstraps speech. I got lucky and I'm doing pretty well for myself, but I know that I'm an accident away from losing it all. Story 18. People who put down others must be really miserable. It's puzzling, especially when they have more than the person they're belittling. A woman from my previous job disliked me from the beginning. She seemed to hate me for my appearance, but shouldn't she be happy that she looks different from me? She has a family, she's conventionally attractive, and she's popular with my team and hers. Yet she constantly felt the need to put me down. Perhaps she's a doormat in her personal life and used me as an outlet. Story 19. People who live in utter filth and can't see how much freer life would be once things are cleaned. I don't understand it, but I sympathize with this mentality. Story 20. People capable of enabling laws that allow unlocked guns in the hands of children or the mentally unstable, especially those designed to shoot the maximum number of bullets per minute. Child abusers, animal abusers, people who would force a child to give birth, especially to the product of rape. Story 21. I will never understand what it is like to be someone with aphantasia, the inability to visualize. My whole life is visual. If my mind's eye was blind, I have no idea how I would function. I cannot even find anything without picturing where I saw it last. And I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so I am looking for things roughly 100 times a day. Anyway, it is just so incredibly wild and impossible for me to picture what their experience is, as much as it is for them to picture what it is like to picture things. Anytime I bring this up, it seems like I find a new person who has not heard of it. Story 22. People who do not wash their hands after going to the restroom in general, but especially those who go through the motions to run the water and stand there, but do not wash their hands. The water is already on and you are just standing there. Just wash your hands. Story 23. People who advocate for absolute political control, such as Christian nationalists, somehow don't understand that authoritarianism is bad for everyone. You may think you're in the in group, but even a casual look at human history should make it obvious that unless you're very wealthy, it's only a matter of time before you become part of the out group. Christian nationalists are especially problematic. If they succeed, it will destroy Christianity as we know it, turning it into a mockery like the prosperity gospel. How do people not understand this? We spent centuries fighting to keep our religions free from state control, and now suddenly we're fighting to give it back. I'm not even religious, but I know that religions should be free from state control or bad things happen. It's as if half of Americans, and some others as well, have forgotten why fascism is bad. The sad truth is that there were many fascist sympathizers then, and that inclination hasn't disappeared. This path is undeniably foolish. Story 24. I'm cursed with the ability to understand everybody far too well. It really sucks. I almost immediately know someone's intentions, inner feelings, and potential traumas, even if they haven't disclosed them, and I've been right after the fact multiple times. It's really draining. Does anyone else experience this? Like reading people uncontrollably and then feeling tired after? Is probably the reason I'm so antisocial. Except for my girlfriend, I don't think I'll ever get a read on her, which is one of the reasons I'm so attracted to her. I will note I'm a male with borderline personality disorder. Story 25. LGBTQ plus Republicans. At least in the current political atmosphere, Republicans have shown time and again they want nothing more than to hurt LGBTQ plus people for nothing more than political gain. I still remember log cabin Republicans in Texas being kicked out of the Conservative Political Action Conference like, well, gosh darn, I have no idea why they do that. Story 26. I understand all types of people. I cannot say I do not understand them. Now, if you asked me what kind of person I loathe, I could give a wonderful list. Story 27. People with no natural curiosity kind of freak me out because the idea of existing like that is so foreign to me. There really seem to be people who don't wonder about the world and about others. If you don't think about things and want to know the answers, then how do you get to know a person, have a fantastic conversation, or learn about things outside your everyday experience? You know? I've just always been full of questions, so not having any seems so bleak to me. Story 28. People who don't eat. I always work with at least one girl who will eat like 2 chicken fingers at 6 p.m. and say that's the first thing she's eaten. Or I have friends that I learned not to trust when they say we're going to eat soon because soon means like 5 hours from now. I can't hang out with people like that. I get too hungry. Story 29. When people hate something for one reason but praise another despite having that same thing. For example, people hate on Asian lady beetles for being non-native to the United States, but love 7-spotted ladybugs, who are also non-native to the United States. The only real difference is one tends to be stinkier, but they're still both ladybugs. Story 30. I struggle to understand people who stay negative even when they have a lot to be thankful for. I know everyone has their problems, but it's hard for me to relate to those who only focus on the bad and do not try to see any positives. Story 31. It's hilarious because I'm a firm believer in the anti-work movement, but I do not understand employees who don't care about their workspace or coworkers. Like, I work as a server. I clean my area and maintain my booths. Just because I'm not a cleaner doesn't mean it's not my problem. If my guest spills ketchup, I'll clean it. I can't stand complaining about guests either. Like, it's a gamble of a job. If you can do better, leave, but don't make my life harder because you're lazy. Story 32. People who get annoyed when they hear something they consider dumb must confront the person about their dumb take. I just don't care at this point. There is some quote that is like, you can tell me 1 + 1 = 5 and I'll just say you are right. Have fun. Story 33. People who believe in a literal interpretation of the Bible or any religious text, that one person didn't actually live to be 900 years old, and the other person didn't turn to salt and snakes didn't talk. Story 34. People who are too serious all the time make it challenging to enjoy lighthearted jokes because they tend to respond in a matter-of-fact way. This reaction can make you feel frustrated. Story 35. The arrogance of law enforcement officers. Why do they feel that when not getting their way, they can just show a badge and threaten someone with arrest when off duty? Story 36. People that seem to do everything to make things harder for themselves. I'm guilty of my own demons. I have many battles I have to pick and choose. However, I never completely did everything I knew was wrong and bad for me. I do, to this day, try and do something right to reach progress. So while it could be many things, at least it is progress. There are people out there, though, that seem to make the wrong decisions, actually learn from them enough to understand, but not even try to correct the situation and even double down, or just lazily make the same mistake later and suddenly remember. I do not know how to fully express it. Everyone has their struggles, and some struggle more than others. But what I cannot understand is people making not only no effort to get better, but also continue the things that shouldn't seem easier to continue. Giving up and doing nothing is the easiest path. They're intentionally taking the harder path they already know is hard and doesn't work, and they act like it's all they know is an excuse. Just give up and do nothing but feel sorry for yourself. Even that would be an improvement over constantly doing the thing that makes things worse for you, like someday different results will come out of it. It is like when someone is really addicted to drugs, but that personality and energy is everywhere and they do literally nothing right. I know people like this. It is like this guy I know who is a screw-up, complains how much he struggles with money, all while driving an expensive car and buying jewelry regularly. Hopeless. Story 37. A person who can feel such jealousy and anger about another person who did things that they did not get to do. What? You are the decision maker in your own life. You get to choose what you want to do, and then you have to work towards achieving those goals. No one is going to hold out a platter for you to take and have a life free of work and difficulties, but full of riches and rewards for working hard. Story 38. Minorities who hate on other minorities. I know it comes from some warped, no one wants to be at the bottom kind of thinking, but I'll just never be able to grasp it. Story 39. I cannot see how intentionally making your truck smellier and dirtier benefits anyone, even if it is owning the liberals, most of whom just dismiss you as moronic anyway. Story 40. People with more money than they can spend but are still exploiting workers to make even more. Wouldn't you rather have a reputation for owning companies that treat their employees well and compensate them fairly? Wouldn't you rather have a legacy of being someone who funded a children's hospital that provides free life-saving care for poor children or something? Why would you prefer to have just a large number representing your bank balance that has become meaningless? It's like a dragon sitting on a pile of gold. What's the point? Story 41. Obviously stopped and taking up entire aisles, sidewalks, etc. I've learned to enjoy it, though. I just wait there quietly, staring at them until they realize what they're doing, feel like the fool they are, making it super awkward until it hits them, and they move their stuff and get out of the way. It's a more humbling middle finger. Story 42. Tailgaters in the slow lane when there are several other lanes wide open. You can have the ticket if there is a police officer down the road. But I have bills to pay, and your larger vehicle on my sedan's rear end is not going to change my mind. Also, they finally cause an accident, choosing to become part of my city's increasing percentage of hit and runs. Anyone who belittles service workers, then complains even more when the workers strike for the ability to move away from the passive-aggressive tipping culture that most other countries do not even bother with. Story 43. People who are seemingly angry all the time. Honestly, even if it's something that's reasonable to be angry about, I find being angry or mad to be absolutely exhausting. Yet there are some people who seem to constantly be in an upset, angry state and carry that with them all the time. Story 44. People who like to bully strangers based on just how those strangers look or dress. Seriously, just because I have my own dressing style, I get harassed 4 or 5 times every night out in a very extreme way. Why are people that way?